Hello, folks. We're back to you in the community. I have a friend. I have really, somebody who's in our accelerator. And who knew she'd be one of my favorites and she'd be a real friend. And so we have Kay with us today. She's a musician. She's an artist. She's built an amazing digital platform. And so, Kay, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, I think you got a good start there.
Come on, you're being modest.
I'm a musician and a writer, as you said, and I've, been a professional in that area for my whole adult life. I've worked around the world, worked with record labels and studio work and everything. And so coming into working with you is about transitioning into getting the digital stuff worked out and heading more in the entrepreneurial direction, which has been a goal of mine. So
yeah, I mean, it's really amazing. You're becoming this full stack entrepreneur, this thing that we talk about, and doing things like you no longer require like this middleman that you
yeah,
have to go to. I mean, if you think about, from the time we started talking about what do you want, and really having the freedom to control your work environment around your
totally.
terms.
Totally. I mean, I would say the main thing, the absolute main reason I wanted to go and chose to go the entrepreneurial direction in spite of having more professional contacts in a kind of a traditional way, the way most people think of the music industry, was I wanted to have artistic control. I wanted to be able to write the things I wanted to write, sing the things I wanted to sing, and find the people I wanted to find, and not worry about those middlemen, like you're saying, and limitations that are often.
So you're in Los Angeles. You're in Palos Verdes, one of the Rancho Palos Verdes, one of the most beautiful places I think on the planet. The
It's
place where
amazing.
everybody goes to drive and go, boy, wouldn't it be nice to live here? So you're there. Tell us what is the traditional route, especially with Hollywood right there. What is traditional versus entrepreneur? What's the difference?
Well, the thing is, it's definitely a changing game. But in the traditional sense, usually what you did was you put a demo together and you just banged on doors until someone would listen to it, hire you onto their label, sign you onto their label, and then you hope that that's going to make things work. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that when you sign to a label, often you just get put on the back burner and then you're not allowed to do anything for years on your own, first of all.
Nice.
So it's actually very risky, and it's always been very risky. And then even if you succeed, they take huge cuts of everything you make. You rarely have artistic freedom, and it's really a challenging place for a lot of artists. Now, I would never say there's a reason people go the label route, because it's challenging, like you're saying, to be a full stack entrepreneur. It's hard to take care of all those pieces, and so a lot of people want to hire it out, and they've got contacts and marketing and radio spots and everything. But what's interesting is that in the last, 10 or 15 years, with the digital explosion, is less and less is it even the case that people will do that legwork for you. Usually a label now is looking for you to have already succeeded to sort of pick you up and maybe give you kind of rocket power.
Right,
but
right.
so they're kind of benefiting from your legwork, and then they just put finances and a few extra contacts behind. So yeah, so what you do is you work with a record label and they tell you kind of what to do and what to wear and what they want you to write, and there's a lot of this because you have different visions about how you see yourself, and they're usually only thinking about what sells, and often they're even wrong, but they
Right.
that's how they look at it. And going the entrepreneurial path has permitted me to really dig deep and figure out what it is that I want to do as an artist, and especially learning about the capacities of the digital world now in terms of directly reaching your fans. It's
Right.
been it was really attractive to me to think of leaving that all behind and focusing really deeply on who it is that I was and what I had to uniquely offer.
So and correct me if I'm wrong, there's a zillion artists out there,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of them that would just love to have any label. Then there's people that have a label, and it's just like you said, but they're waiting tables. Just LA is full of this, right? And no matter what it is, it's just
Yeah.
full of this out there. And but all of a sudden, when you're an entrepreneur, you're deciding your destiny. But
Totally.
and so you have this freedom to do this, but it's also, there's 500,000 new entrepreneurs that start every single month. Of course, most want venture capital, less than 1% get it. And if the ones that get it, only 10% succeed. So there's so much, I mean, in just climbing this entrepreneurial mountain, it's 90% failure. So here you are, you're an artist, you're not a web designer, you're not a marketing stack, but and then here's the thing, what you're doing, I mean, first you're a conservative.
Hmm.
So what is it like to be a conservative artist in a very liberal town?
Well, that, I mean, being here is kind of okay because I just sort of have my people that I see and I work with, and it doesn't really come up so much there. But I will say that was one of the main motivators too for going an entrepreneurial path, because a lot of people will sort of deny this, but I can say absolutely it's the case from the inside. You have to pretend you're not who you are in the music industry to get
Right.
anywhere.
And I've
And
heard that from so many people.
and some people have a higher threshold for how they want to go about that or whatever. And I mean, everybody's got their different path. But for me, I just couldn't handle having to stifle myself all the time and pretend I wasn't somebody I was, and then feeding into just the pure marketing kind of mode of it. It's just become so commercial. And I'm not talking about sensible entrepreneurial ideas about how to, get your message out. I'm saying there's such a it's so commercial as to take out often like the very heart of the work itself, the art itself. And then especially when you want to talk about things like humanity and goodness and truth and stories and God and the
Right.
human struggle, like you want to have these authentic stories that you want to be able to tell about what's going on, and you feel really confined to just kind of towing the party line. And I mean, the thing people don't realize is um it's not just being forced to talk about a certain kind of frame, like go stay within a certain framework, but it's even also it it can be just really boring because everybody has to play it so safe that
Right.
the lyrics become so lame and the sounds become so repetitive. Like there's just so little, you can tell people just are so creatively squelched, I think.
I mean, isn't this what they make movies about? And it's always the artist versus the label, and then, and getting taken advantage of, and then they have their breakout at some point. But what the first time I met you, the sense I got is that you were spirit filled. I just knew it immediately. And you're somebody that is driven not only by your faith, but you have faith in the Bible. So there's some parameters there that you're just not making up stuff,
Yeah.
out of some of your self-made theology. You're driven by purpose because this thing you do is a God-planted dream. I mean, every time I talk to you, and I know we've had deep discussions about this, God has put a dream inside you. It's an innovative dream to really reach an audience with this gift that He's given you, and it's not just the gift of voice. It's your mind is amazing, and not that you don't need a great mind to have a great voice, but like the stuff you write, and to want to reach, to all of a sudden build out this subscription based platform, which is one of the hottest things you could do in technology and marketing, and you're really creating something that isn't there. I mean, there is no other. Your unique value proposition is that there's really not anybody doing what you're doing. So you're the first. Now, the problem with that is there's no one to copy.
Yeah,
You have to
exactly.
invent everything. And so, you're driven by faith, you're driven by purpose, and I think you're driven by the Great Commission of spreading the gospel
Yeah.
and helping people grow. And the arts and entertainment is one of the seven mountains that we talk about. In what are the seven mountains? Let's see, I always forget them when I have to. You have business, you have education, you have media, you have government, you have arts and entertainment, you have the family unit, and you have religion. And
Mhm.
so, if you think about what's really shaping our thinking. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody walks around with one of these, and we're listening and watching something all the time,
Constantly.
constantly. So you're shaping.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: when we first got going, the first thing that we cover in the accelerator is what you want. And I think that was really easy for you. You already had this grand kind of vision of what you want in your personal life, owning your time,
Yeah.
um, deciding, this is the lifestyle that you want, what you want to, what's the balance between work, um, um, and, and, and your personal life. But then we started building like business models using lean business canvas, which is like the most sterile piece of, and then building a brand out of that. But it's not really enjoyable to go to do lean business. It's not for me. I mean,
Yeah.
when you started this, what was your creative brain thinking when we're doing all these like things that venture capitalists do?
Right. Well, I will say I do think more artists are capable of doing what I'm doing than currently are for sure.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, it's the thing is I am someone who likes systems and I like a challenge and I like having to think through things and so I don't know that I hated it or anything. I think more than anything it was really helpful for me to be able to put it into concrete terms.
Right.
That this because often artists are so intuitive that it's hard for us to put words to what we sense we're supposed to do, you know?
Right.
So being able to have a structure in which to put what my vision was really helpful and giving me greater confidence that I could build a pathway that such that it would become like it started like it's really becoming more and more now is that it's not a question of like whether you're going to succeed at the specific dream you have, but it's more how and when, because you start learning that you can systematize it.
I'm trying to remember. I can't remember back, but I know that we spent a lot of time in Canvas exploring different ideas, kind of like building the kite, letting it fly, and then you'd come back and I mean, but I can't remember at the very beginning, did we know this was going to be a subscription model? And then also, did we know that you were going to have higher price private commissions? Did we know that at the beginning, or
I
is that
think
something we learned on the journey?
I came in because I got to meet you in person when we started, not a lot of
Right.
people have that privilege.
Because you came, she came to our LA campus, to our first thing that we had there. You were at events and different things, but that's how we met. And then when we went online, we continued. But what
So
so
when I
what was
came
it
in,
like? When did you figure out you were going to do subscription and some of these
yeah.
higher price things? I mean,
Well, it's actually probably a good example of how a lot of the journey is a lot of circling around and back around, right? So I came in your door with a pretty clear idea that I wanted to do these higher ticket items because one of the great challenges of a performer is that even if you do very well from a like credentialed standpoint, it's very difficult to build, if you think about the math behind it, when you're trying to build an ROI on, you have to get like millions of people, and now
right.
they're all streaming. I mean, to turn that into you might have the satisfaction of being famous. Like I know a lot of people who have tons of followers who make no money, and people don't know this, right? Like you can be kind of almost famous and
Right.
still not making money. So for me, I was like, you know what? I don't want to keep going that route because I'd rather have a higher quality audience and I don't want to be touring for the rest of my life. I also
Right.
don't want to have to constantly be releasing stuff to try to get a few more streams. What I want is to be able to build a high quality audience. So I started with that idea and then it was a long process of figuring out how to actually get back to that and how to build it and how to make sure that that was going to be possible. So then eventually the subscription model, I think, started to develop in the last, 8 months or whatever.
So it's
And then,
kind of
yeah,
how have you handled when you hit a brick wall, like you have an idea, but the model it won't produce what you want, so you have
yeah,
to go back and figure. And once you've made it past there, it's easy to forget what you went through.
yeah,
It's kind of like a woman having birth. It's like if it's thank God guys weren't the ones that had the babies because there would go we'd have one and then never again. you know, but the women a woman with the love of the baby and all that they somehow they just they're back at it
yeah.
and it's kind of like I feel like we to be successful, you have to normalize. this process of going round and round?
Exactly. I was just going to say that. So, I mean, I don't know that I had the same dramatic like wall, wall, wall that some people experience, because I had also been working on these ideas longer before. But the main thing that changed was that, like I've said to you a few times, it's that constant accountability to keep going forward, and that having you and having the program to reference constantly, like to just reset, reset, reset all the
Right.
time, in terms of believing that there are solutions to your problems. And it's funny because often those don't have to be massive walls, like I can think of ideas that would be massive walls, but often it's just that you're overwhelmed trying to learn how to do the digital stuff and you just think, oh, I can't do this. And instead, you can come back and know that there are solutions to your exact, even little problems. But little problems become big problems if you don't take care of them.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, your website, which is, by the way, guys, if you want to go look, it's Clarity, CLARITY.art. You built this whole, it's beautiful. And
mhm,
you built this whole website yourself.
mhm,
And, we have a whole process with how do you get there. But, you know, and I hope I could say this, but you were tired of a middleman. You're like a decorator, like a designer who
mhm,
you know a direction you want to hit, and you to fight through dealing with like a technologist who doesn't have that design skill, and then they keep on showing you stuff and you're like, no, 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 no. And you
yeah,
just wanted the freedom to
yeah.
build out what you wanted. So you actually built out you worked on the Kajabi platform. You built out a, which you have to figure that out how that works.
I was totally overwhelmed by it. It was horrible at the beginning.
But I cracked up because I can't remember if you texted me or emailed me like over a weekend or something. You're like, your site launched, and
Mhm,
you're like, wow, this feels so rewarding.
yeah.
And I went and looked at it, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's really amazing that somebody who's never built a website like this,
Mhm, mhm,
that has a platform. It's not just a static website. There's a platform built
mhm.
into it. There's a CRM built into it. There's all these different pieces. There's a whole billing cycle built into it. There's all these different things in there. And like, you did it. And I think, Kay, that it is what you are is you're a learner. You have a learning heart. And
Yeah.
the thing that I've picked up with you is I know you wanted to grow
Mhm.
where what you're doing with your business and with your life. You were willing to change some things so that you could grow, but before you could change some things, you actually had to change some of your thinking.
Totally.
Because it's like, I remember when you first started dealing with a website, you're like, what is with these programmers? Who does and it's like you're seeing things from the artistic creative side, and these programmers are like the web guy, and they just think differently. But like I'm sitting here right now facing my screen, and I'm looking at your homepage, and it's like this imagery that I'm looking at. It's like half your head cut off right at the nose. It's the do, and your one and it's like, it's so creative. It's so beautiful, and I don't think very few people could. When I look at your imagery that you choose,
Mhm.
even your content strategy on LinkedIn, I mean, it's just you find these beautiful images that match what you're writing, and so you know, in the accelerator we talk about TDR, think, do, result.
Yeah.
We all have a way of thinking, good or bad. It produces doing good or bad, and produces results, good or bad. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I'll tell this story. Before you built out your website, you had another website. It was okay. It
Yeah.
wasn't, it was okay.
It was very beta. I was
It was
like, this
beta,
is going to
yeah.
be it, but I need to start. Yeah.
And you said, hey, I just want to test some ideas out there. Do you see any harm in me just testing some ideas? And so in other words, going to the marketplace
Yeah.
and actually selling something, even though we knew the website, this was not going to be the finished product.
Yeah.
And so I thought about it, and I thought, I don't see how it could hurt. Do it.
Mhm.
And what did you find out when you did that?
Interest right away. So,
All kinds of people bought. And it wasn't even, it was kind of like this idea of ship it. It's not perfect yet. But let me just test my idea because, the number two reasons why people fail is they build something and the market rejects it.
Totally.
And so you tested it, and then even some ideas. What we've had some together, some whiteboard ideas on different offerings. What if I did this? What if I did that? And 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 we've gone from an idea to making the idea digital, so somebody could see it, to putting it out there and have instant response to it for really high price things. I mean, it is. So how have you
Yeah,
dealt
and
with? Go
well,
ahead.
I'll
Go ahead.
say one thing quick, because one of the main things I'm remembering is when I came into your office the first time, I still had it in my head, as much as I was still looking at it entrepreneurially, I still thought I needed to work with someone who could kind of be like a manager, who
Mm,
could like wheel and deal for me and
yeah.
get me in front of the kind of people that I wanted to get in front of. And instead, what we've learned is I can absolutely go straight to them,
Yeah.
build my, position myself the right way and communicate what I want to do. And people are going to be interested. And I don't have to, do like halvesies with somebody who's just
You
going to,
don't. I
yeah.
mean, it's just, here's the thing. God created you. He
Hmm.
put this inside your heart for you to do.
Yeah.
And so it's really impossible. You could have momentary failure where we're learning what doesn't work, but it's impossible for you to fail at this journey that you're on. But there had to be times, and I've been at this 36 years, and I still deal with these feelings myself when I'm going into every year. I have to go into new territory. Every year, the definition of full stack keeps changing
Yeah.
because as long as technology changes, so will buyer journey, the way people buy. So a lot of, 80% of how people make decisions is all online now.
Yeah.
And so that's different than, so you can go, if you get in front of, and you've proven this, if you can get in front of the right segment, the
Hmm.
right buyers, and you can go from awareness to interest to all these different stages of buyer to purchase in a pretty quick period of time, where in the analog somebody would have had to get a I don't know, DVD or or hear you perform someplace or word of
Yeah.
mouth. But you have the power now to decide who you want to get in front of
Yeah.
and do this thing that most people don't, they don't even know it exists the way that you're doing it. Like when we first met and you were telling me what you were going to do, honestly, I was like, I don't even understand what she's talking about. And here's something that's interesting. When you launched your first art bundle,
Hmm.
so she's created this experience where it's her writings, it's her music, it's a bunch of different things. I mean, you're having this digital experience. And so the first time I got it, I clicked on it and on my computer and I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, great job, okay, hooray. And then I felt guilty and I thought, you know what, I better listen to it. So I put it on the big TV. And I said, and then you did this thing where you say, sit down, have a glass of wine. I mean, it's just this intro video is like really something, and I mean, she has like star power like you wouldn't believe. And I'm seeing this movie star, telling you. And so I did it. I sat down, I had a glass of wine, and it was how long is the thing? Is it like an
About
hour?
half an hour.
About a
Half an
half hour. And I'm sitting there. I felt like almost like I was someplace else, and I'm listening to poetry. I don't like. I mean, I'm not against poetry,
hour.
but
Yeah.
I said, Kay, you wouldn't. I mean, I'm a conservative guy. I didn't even know I liked this stuff,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's really and the way you're delivering it. There's nothing like this. It's not out there yet.
Hmm.
But how have you dealt with all the highs and lows of knowing what you want, but not being sure how you're going to pull it off with technology, what the offer is, just all the stuff you've had to go through. How have you dealt with those highs and lows and the attacks of the enemy?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes better than others is the honest truth, right?
You know?
But I think, again, pointing back to the accelerator, having people around you is not to be underestimated, because I think in the past when I've tried things, it's so easy to get discouraged, or to fall for the lie that what you have to offer isn't good. You know,
Right.
you and you think, oh, I'm the problem, or maybe, like, I think the temptation as someone who's more of like a traditional conservative singer-songwriter who just wants to do like beautiful things and tell stories, and then you listen to this like really dark pop that everybody's listening to, and you just kind of think, well, maybe my ship has sailed. Like, if
Right.
I compete with that because people don't want it, right? So the difference is that when you have a team around you, um, you know that you don't give up. You kind of just know that, oh, this is just part of the process. So you can have a bad day where you feel discouraged or things aren't working. But then between having encouraging people around you and having practical advice about how to navigate that obstacle, it just always feels like any discouragement I have is going to be something I have to navigate, but temporary, which is such
Right.
a different thing. Like, just to know you kind of keep that sense of the overarching place you're going. And when you have, and then with that, with those little successes, you just build more and more confidence. So I don't have any doubt that what we're working on now is going to really fly.
It's what you were meant to do, and you're
Yeah,
inventing something that, didn't exist.
yeah,
You're really calling what is not as though it were. You weren't waiting on circumstances and then
yeah.
getting permission from circumstances. You're just going out and creating.
Hmm.
And you're learning it from, I mean, I'm here to help you, but really you're learning this from the creator who created you to do this. And, I would, as people are listening to this, what I like about this conversation is that, you're like you have programming skills in some way, with this platform that you. I mean, if people really understood,
I
like,
acquired them in the last
yeah,
3 months.
and I know that it's like, um, even though you don't come from that side of the fence, but you've still
Yeah,
mastered it and you've done it in an amazing way. And I think a lot of the journey is knowing where you are in the journey and what's the next thing. And it's when I think about, you know we have every week you're in a group session, but you and I have had a lot of one-on-one sessions, and sometimes we don't really even focus on the next step. We just focus on where you are and what you're feeling and what you should be feeling. And I think it's good to have other people to talk to.
totally. And people, one thing that I feel I've really felt, especially the last few days, is the need, and this isn't say, oh, go ditch your friends and family. I'm not saying that, but the need to make sure you get around people who are dreamers and entrepreneurs, and if you're a musician and an artist, other artists, because the effect, you have to at least spend a good chunk of time around people like that so that your mind lives there, because
Right.
it's just so easy to fall into a different mode of being. And if you're trying to do something totally different that has nothing to do with the way most people live, which is not a judgment, it's just everybody has different callings or whatever,
Right.
but you have to get around people who share that same kind of vision.
Well,
Otherwise, you
and
lose
and
it,
and
you
look
know?
at, if you're an entrepreneur, if you have a job, you get paid every week or every other week, no matter what. I mean, as long as you don't do something to get fired, your check comes in. When you're an entrepreneur, there's all this planning and preparation and all these learning modes, like, okay, will it really work? And
Yeah,
pivots and all these different things. And people, no matter how much experience I've had, when I'm in between things, it's always amazing to me. The non-entrepreneurs are always, well, are you making money yet? And
yeah,
it's like, no, I'm not supposed to make money yet. We haven't even launched yet. We're, like, they
yeah,
don't get it. They don't
yeah,
understand. It's and then when you get the harvest from what you're doing, they don't get that either. And they think,
right.
well, you just got lucky.
Lucky.
You're just really good at this. And it's like, no, you had no idea of, the money I had to put in or the time and effort. And I had to
Yeah,
figure out what wouldn't work before I could figure out what worked. And here's the thing, the in my life, and I think this is true with most people, the initial idea, the initial model that you come up with rarely works. It's usually some twist of that that is better than you ever thought of. It was always there to start with. It was always something you could have done from day one. It's just we didn't see it because we came in with a preconceived notion of what it should be.
Right.
And then through the process, we find what it was really meant to be.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of it's I think there's a humility that we have to have where we're saying, okay, God, I'm not seeing this right now. You're going to have to really. I don't understand what's going on, but nevertheless, I'm going to trust you, and I'm just going to
Well,
keep walking.
totally. And the keeping walking, I'm just going to keep hammering back to that because I think what a lot of people underestimate and what I didn't fully grasp until working with you was that you have to keep moving, and it's not, you can't look at the failure as really as a failure. It's a process. Like
Right.
you won't stumble into that like perfected version of what you end up doing without first going through the process. And even making my website, I mean, that was the thing. I didn't realize it could be such a gift to have to go through all that annoyance because I actually, in and through doing it, discovered like what I was supposed to be doing in a complete way. And I don't think I
Right.
would have come to it if I'd had just hired it out to somebody. I don't
Right.
think I had that clarity. So people really underestimate how much wisdom comes through the doing. Even if
That's
even
good.
if even if it doesn't work right away, that doesn't mean it's not working. It's that process. It's like training, right? For like
Right.
a marathon or something. That
No,
first
that
bad
is
run matters.
that is so true. And I was thinking in 2019, which we were in Los Angeles with a physical location. This is before we went online, and to shoot video, we had a volunteer crew, so we'd shoot with three cameras, and my son Brandon would head the group. We'd have all these volunteers, but probably have 8 or 9 people running the different cameras and running sound, and all I had to do is just show up.
Yeah.
Well, when we knew that we were going to, and for marketing, we would do all this marketing that would just get people to an event. And then once they were in our on our physical location, that's when the relationship would get built. Well, I knew that when we were going to go 100% online, that there's stuff that I'm going to want to do things on the fly. Like I'm going to want to do a video like
Right.
today at noon, and yesterday I didn't know I was going to do it, and I want to be able to do it myself. If I want to shoot multi-camera, I want to be able to do it myself. That means nobody behind the cameras. I want to learn how to edit. I want to learn how to do all the audio, music, all these different things that
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do. And I made the commitment to learn all this stuff. And, I'm 59 years old. I don't want to learn all this stuff. I'm used to just paying people to do all this stuff.
Uh-huh.
But to create the content that we're creating now, I can do it anytime, anyway. But there was challenges. Like
Mhm.
there would be times when I'm shooting a video and it was just hard to get it right. It's easy doing live events. It's hard to do pre-planned events. And then, I'd shoot a half hour, 45 minutes, and then I'd go and there's like no sound.
Yeah.
And or, it just like just
Whoa.
I can't tell you how many times I ran into problems, and it could have just been like like we had built out. I decided I'm going to build out the whole website myself. Now
Mhm.
I have been designing websites, the architect of websites, but prior to 2020,
Mhm.
I had other people build it for me,
Yeah.
and then I could make little small adjustments. But I had the
Yeah.
the the version that we have now, and I think we're 2 or 3 versions into it. I did every inch of it,
Yeah.
but I can remember like finishing a homepage, having a video, and then it wouldn't play. You could hear it, but unless you turned your phone like that, you wouldn't see it. And
Mhm.
I'm like, I have ads going, I have all, I'm just like, and then I'd call for technical support, and they're like, oh well, it works fine over here, like the same kind of crap you hear, and
Yeah.
that's where you sit and you go, okay, God, I don't know what it is.
Mhm.
These are just like, but you're gonna have to help me.
Yeah.
And then, like 2 weeks later, I just get this thought, well, go try this. You know, who
Mhm.
knows where I know the thought came from God, right?
Mm.
Because it wasn't in my head.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I go try that little thing and it works. And
Mhm.
this and all these things I've learned this year, I know next year I have to learn all kinds of new stuff. And so this is this idea of full stack. And then
Hmm.
there's a faith and purpose journey that kind of goes hand in hand with this thing. And so, what would you tell people, Kay, that are just starting out, and this the whole idea of them not having a co-founder or a team of people, and they're going to have to do all, and they're not even sure all this is going to work, and they don't have a big pile of money in the bank. I mean, they're just stepping out like on faith. What would you tell them?
If I can do it, you can do it.
That's so simple, but you know what? It's
No,
really true.
I think it's just that, I mean, it's two things. Like I'm someone who's committed to learning, and I'm willing, even if I'm not always perfect at it, to persevere. Okay, those are two really crucial things. But in terms of natural gifting, like I'm not a stupid person, but digital scrambles my brain like I can't describe. I'm such an analog person in
Right.
every sense. Like I'm tangible,
Like
and
in person
in
analog. Yeah.
person, and I'm very creative, and that's where I live most. And I like systems, but even within that, it's more like logical systems and linguistic systems. Digital is very hard for me and has been. And I have been working, for perspective, like I have been learning the technical side of things for my industry for 12 years. Like
Wow.
I learned, how to record myself and do video and build really bad websites before I could ever do a better one. And learning about marketing, learning about how to build an audience, learning human psychology. So for context, first of all, I think you give people a major short path to what I had to go through. I think
Yeah.
is it's good for
I
people.
would agree. I have
But,
that path.
yeah.
It's the quickest journey between like point A and point B. That's something I'm
Totally,
really good
because
at.
otherwise it's a lot of floundering. Now I can see the wisdom of everything I've gone through, and I also had a
Right.
really complex thing I had to distill over the course of a lot of years. But yeah, I just think that a lot of it is really just being willing to do the work and to not be too intimidated and to not be like ashamed or frustrated if it takes some time. Because
Right.
like, if you've never learned digital and you don't have a gift for it, it's okay. But go through that
Well,
process.
and it's interesting because a lot of people don't understand what digital is. I mean, on one side, it's the website.
Yeah.
Underneath it, it's all the technology for the platform that you're in. So that's a whole nother thing. Then you have the all of the content strategy. So you're creating content digital. It might be video, it might be text, it might be imagery, all these different. So and that is all surrounded. You're creating something that will nurture people through buyer journey. Then you're having to build a customer acquisition system where you're taking all these different things and go, okay, if I do X amount of activity on a regular basis, I'll get X amount of traffic, and then I'll get X number of leads, and then I'll take them through this journey where I could take somebody who didn't know I exist, and maybe they didn't even know they'd like this stuff,
Yeah.
you know, and you can take them through this. I mean, the first time, for me, I think when the first time I saw you sing in a YouTube video, I was just like, wow, I think I just listened to an angel. And I mean, I had, because remember, we met a bunch of times before,
Yeah.
everybody's an artist in LA,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And I was just like, wow, that,
Yeah.
that is like, she's really gifted. And then the first time I read something that you wrote, and I was like, okay, she's really smart, you know. And then the first time I saw what this package was going to look like,
Mhm.
which didn't exist. It would be like somebody in the taxi cab business trying to articulate what Uber would look like.
Right.
And I don't think most people would get it.
Mhm.
Or somebody who is watching regular TV and live cable, and now you're talking about Netflix.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of taking this whole bundle of all these different types of things that are really wrapped around. It's not like to me, it's not like a political conservative. It's like goodness and rich and honesty and all these other things that
Yeah.
really make up conservative.
Yeah.
So, I love working with you. It's going to be amazing to see, what happens with you and where you go. I think it's Ephesians 3:20. It's going to be. I know you think really big. I know I think really big. We talk about this, but
Yeah.
it's going to even be beyond those things because that's
Yeah.
what God promises.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you. I know you're busy. I know you have a task list of things that you have to get done this week and things that you're figuring out and all this. But I really, I, I'm so grateful that you take the time and share your journey with other people because at the end of the day, if we want to change our surroundings, it's got to be a lot of us that are committed to a purpose
Totally.
to do something, and we want to change our culture. We want to change
Yeah.
what's around us, and I love this idea that you can do it, and
Yeah.
that's what
Well,
my wife. She always goes. She does that. I don't know if it's a Chihuahua dog, but she goes, "You can do it." She always tells me that. If I come in complaining about anything,
you
she goes,
know,
"Do it."
that's it's so good. First of all, just humor goes a long way too when you're in this process. Um, I think one of the things that's more of a heart cry too is I know how hard it can be from inside when you know you have something of
Right.
value and you just think in your dark days you think like the world doesn't care basically and you're like I'll just go pout somewhere, right? I think what I want what I love about what you do and what I want so many others to realize is that they are rarely the problem. It's literally just having the humility to learn that there's a process for how to translate who you are and what you have to give to the world. And when you learn that language, anything's possible.
It is. I have a dream that one of these days you'll help me create the first accelerator for artists.
I
Because there's
know.
a zillion people out there that
Yeah,
are really starving,
they are.
and they don't need to be because they have gifts from God in
And
them.
I want that's one of the things I love is that, and I want to, go back to the record label thing. I don't think it's always bad. There's some really good people,
Right.
obviously. Same with the web stuff. Like everybody's got a different process. But what I don't like about what's happening in more and more in the entertainment industry is that it's so, and I think quality control is good, but it's so gate kept that often very mediocre talent gets, blasted across the universe and then these incredibly talented people, geniuses practically, stay completely hidden. And
Yeah.
you make it possible for those people to find a voice, and our world needs them, you
You
know?
know, in the startup community, I really have a love hate with venture capital because that's what it's like.
Right,
They
right.
think they're the gatekeeper since they have this huge flow that comes to them. And
Yeah,
they think, not all of them, but I would say the
yeah,
majority feel like they get to choose the winners and the losers. And
yeah,
I've always thought it's not up to you. It's up to God, not you.
yeah,
And it's I think that when we're creating entrepreneurs, what we're teaching people is that you're equipped to take what you have right to the market and
yeah,
bypass the middleman.
exactly.
That's what we're doing. So thank you so much for being on this table talks with us, and I know that the people watching are just going to absolutely love you.
Well, thank you so much for all you do for so many, Gerald. It's wonderful to be connected.